Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman. I'm here with Lance Tyson, who is CEO of the Tyson Group. Lance works with the leaders of small and mid-sized businesses to help them with their sales efforts. Welcome back, Lance.
I appreciate you having me on, Lauren.
My pleasure.
It's been a while, but always a pleasure to talk to you.
It's been a year and a half. It surprised me to realize. And that's why I've been really looking forward to this conversation. I know sales is always important, but there's so much going on right now. I just have a feeling there's probably a lot that's happened in the last year and a half since we last spoke. And I'd love to catch up a little bit at this, really interesting time. With the tariffs, with the uncertainty, there's so much going on. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So our business, if you look at our portfolio of clients, we work from sports and entertainment to manufacturing, right? And it's interesting because it's there's a lot of starts and stops, right? It's almost like you're like a hockey player, starting and stopping, And what I'm seeing is the stress on business leaders, especially around chief revenue officers and any small business leader that's involved in the sales process. They're putting a lot more time into the sales process. In particularly, if it's a complex sales process, they're having to spend a lot of time drawing up game plans because are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? It depends what headline you watch. It depends what news outlet you watch. And then different parts of the country actually seem to be dealing with it in all kinds of different ways. For some reason, the Midwest seems like it's in the Southwest anytime we're doing business there, it feels strong. You get to the East Coast though, it feels sluggish, right? And my data points are really how much time people are investing in the sales process. And the other thing I just did a workshop on this recently and wrote some paper on it, is we're seeing the sales process very fragmented right now, right? So, and that fragmentation means there's certain conversations that happen and then there's a stop and then it's more fragmented. And then the stress that puts on a sales team is they got to really pay attention to the cruxes of the sales process or the buying process, right? So that's kind of what we're seeing a lot of, and sales cycle times are extended in some industries 15 to 20% longer than they normally would be.
I talk to business owners all over the country. I hear what you're saying about the Midwest and the Southwest. That kind of tracks with what I'm hearing. But I've heard from people all over who just cite the clients they were counting on are holding back right now. They're reluctant to move forward. They're waiting to see what's going to happen. Do you have advice for someone in that situation?
Yeah, well, the exact quote that I hear, or to summarize the quote, is, "We have the budget, but we're just going to hold."
There you go.
Right? That seems to be the consensus with the whole thing. I think my advice would be, if I was getting really tactical, I would tell one of your clients that. Don't get caught up in this fragmentation where you're accepting answers, where they're emailing that or texting that. Like we're advising our sales team when we hear stuff like that. Hey, I'm not sure I really understand. Would you hop on a call with me for a few minutes so you kind of debate it out, get them to defend, define, and explain, or start the negotiation process, because it's real easy to put folks off with the technology that's in place. So that's some of my tactical advice. My strategic advice would be, when you're looking at how you sell or how you do business or how you negotiate, make sure you're doing that as live as possible, right? You're actually planning those pieces out, and you're planning for an additional 15. Like, don't be estimating your pipeline for what it typically is. Maybe you're adding 15 to 20% length onto it a little bit. And my other piece of advice would be, especially with these tariffs and in the different industries, you should be expecting to go into most of your deals. What's the lowest number you're going to take, and expect people are going to ask you for a much better deal. than they normally would. So it's going to get the bargaining play. We're spending a lot of time. We do negotiation training or coaching just in that bargaining step of the negotiation process.
The other side of that, I'm sure you're seeing, especially from businesses that are directly affected by the tariffs, is the need to raise prices. What are you telling clients about how to communicate those necessary price increases?
Well, some of the advice that we give is and we've been doing this for a couple of years. With inflation as bad as it's been, for maybe 5 or 6 years now, we've been talking about price increases are reflecting inflation, and we've continued to advise down that lane, maybe adjusting the words and things like that. I think a lot of buyers do realize that I think we've been in that economy, that inflationary economy that's going into double digits. So I think that's the advice I would continue to give. It's the cost of doing business, right? I would tell you, Lauren, there's a significant, I was telling we had our summit, our company, Tyson Group Summit this week in Columbus, and 30 people come in, our employees from all around the country. And one of my board members was there, and he goes, "Hey, Lance, what do you think? What do you think with all these tariffs and in terms of the sales training business?" I said, "We're kind of in a good business because, people we're gonna have to work with people and deal with the price objection a lot, right?" So, but I would kind of stick to my guns on that inflationary track a little bit. And I wouldn't apologize for the cost of doing business. I think you're just gonna have to lean into that friction, and I'm not trying to give a pump up speech to it either. So.
Do you think people should be open about price increases that are driven by the tariffs, or?
I think in some cases they should. I think in some, based off the economy, based off the current conditions. But, Lauren, if you go back to, we're coming out of COVID 21, 22, right? We're in 25 right now. I would say in some cases, like we've heard nothing for the last 4 years, and we're in a recession or we're getting to it. And I don't think that's changed with any of the politics that's going on now or the tariffs. I feel like we've never really got out of that zone in some industries. So I would lean into it where I could. I don't think there's a overarching strategy to it, but I think in some industries that's a very acceptable thing to do. And if you are going to increase your prices, you're doing that early and often. You're communicating it early and often.
You mentioned among your clients that you have manufacturers. You also have a lot of sports-oriented businesses. I'm guessing these issues certainly apply to your manufacturers. Does anything affect the sports business?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you're the cost of, say you buy a corporate hospitality suite and you're, in Washington or Baltimore. I mean, that you may own the lease to the suite, but it's not free food. There's, the entertainment value is going up even higher somewhere, in some cases based off the food, and it could be 10 to 15% increases in pricing that you didn't budget for the year before. So you're absolutely seeing it in that. And then the cost of an average ticket's going up in most cases to double digits based off, what I read in Sports Business Journal. So I think it's across the board. It just really is across the board. And manufacturing, depending on, one of our big clients is in the plastics business, and I think petroleum costs are coming down a little bit, but steel and with their machinery, steel's up, so they're dealing with it across the board also. And then parts, right? So parts are getting more expensive because the inventories are being depleted.
Sure. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is artificial intelligence, generative AI, ChatGPT. We talked about this a little bit a year and a half ago, but that's like 6 lifetimes in AI time. Where do things stand for you? What's on your radar with that?
It's kind of interesting, right? So our COO, just for our company in particular, our COO did start to look at, and she's really good. She started to look at all the different technology we were using, and we had we'd go into the Inc. 5. Her and I had gone to her name's Moni. Her and I went to the Inc. 5000 awards last year, and every other workshop was, "What's your AI strategy? What's your AI strategy?" It felt like I had a string tied around my finger, and I came out. I go, "We better come up with a better AI strategy." We do this all the time. And then we were sitting in our board meeting, and one of my board members, his name's Barry. He's a Barry Sanders, not to be confused with Barry Sanders. He's a partner at the McChrystal Group, which is Stanley McChrystal's company, General Stanley McChrystal, and they're in the consulting business. And he said they were doing some research, and one of the big consulting firms in some of the business he was involved with had come back with a proposal in record time. And I won't name who it was, but they said they were the worst salespeople, but the presentation was point on. And one of the things that they had done, one of the consulting firms, is they kind of go into one system, say it's like Microsoft or something, and the way AI is pulling together all the IP inside of a company, or all the thinking, right? It's really critical. And Moni came back and looked at ours and said, we're on Google, we're on Microsoft, we're on Zoom, right? We have AI note takers from Otter. We're on Slack, and we have 9 different systems, and we're not even leveraging AI like we should internally. So that is one thing, is kind of making it all one system. Companies need to start looking at that. It's really important. We're going to
have you been able to do that?
We launched the announcement on Wednesday, and we are all in going to eliminate all the different services that we use, right down to our CRM, right? And we're going to kind of go under one umbrella. I'm not going to endorse that company here, but we're going to one system that collectively comes across everything from email all the way through. Because what happens is it captures, right? And then that becomes your internal brain, right? So imagine being able to produce a proposal in minutes based off everything you've done in the past, right? So you take the labor out of that.
You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but I'm okay if you want to name the company you're using.
It's Microsoft. We're going to go to Copilot.
Okay.
If you didn't, I didn't want to. And Google had an option. There's a lot of options out there, but we were trying to go down to one system, and it just kind of makes sense, right? And see, I think with AI as a business owner, everybody has to. I said this in the pregame. It's not a secret, okay? So, like, I was on a call. I was on a big negotiation, and we do a diagnostic, and I could tell the HR person was asking AI questions and taking the report of ours that we produce for them and putting it in AI. And I got him laughing. I said, "Hey, you're putting our report in AI and ask those questions." And he smiled. I go, "I'm taking your questions and putting them in AI to answer." He goes, "That's really funny." I go, right. So it's no secret, right? Like, when at our meeting yesterday, one of my board members was sitting there and he was attending, and he goes, when you guys pitch something, they're going to your website, and they could go to your website and say, "Hey, how would Tyson Group pitch us?" And it comes up with a proposal. And in some cases, you got to be watch. Are some of your pricing out there? Is your pricing out there? So one of the things we did, we realized some stuff was out there, and we didn't want it out there because we had a salesperson using a free version of ChatGPT. So it wasn't an inclusive system. They put it out and now all of a sudden you get exposed. Now we fixed it, right? We figured out how to fix it, but you got to be careful because, and then the third thing with AI is, since it's not a secret, since the competitor may have it or the person you're selling to may have it, right? They can write an Academy Award-winning script, so can you, but can you give an Academy Award-winning performance? And the other thing we're starting to see is we're seeing an uptick in kind of face-to-face selling, or maybe not even face-to-face, or something like you and I are on, like technology, like a Zoom or a Teams or something like that, because there's so much AI out there. It's actually pushing people to have conversations more, because if not, everybody's writing something perfect. The last thing though I will say, because I'm writing a new book, and we have the number one sales researcher in the country that works for Tyson Group. His name is Dr. Adam Rapp. He's at Ohio University, and we were doing him and I were doing a podcast or a webinar, and I put some things and some research into Claude. We're going back and forth from a paid version of ChatGPT and Claude. We had 21 citations that were made up.
Oof.
So you have to proofread. It does manufacture things because you got to be really good at prompting, right? So you got to be really good at asking the question. So I didn't mean to go on a tirade there, but
No. That's an important point. I kind of love the sort of the arms race description you had of both sides of a negotiation using the same kinds of tools, if not the same exact tool. I read an article the other day about an AI system for answering restaurant phones, just something to make it easier for the overworked staff of a restaurant to focus on the customers in the house and not have to deal with a ringing phone. But every now and then they get calls from an AI service that wants to make a reservation for its master, and sometimes the systems freak out when they realize that it's two bots talking to each other. That's almost like what you described. What happens when you do have both sides using the same technology in a negotiation? I understand that they're not talking directly to each other, but they are through the humans that are buying and selling. It sounds like you were suggesting you can get to a situation where these people are really good at dealing with each other. They may not be able to perform what they're promising, though. Is that what the AI is ahead of the actual performance of the business?
Yeah, well, could be, and it depends on how you do. We'll think about it a couple ways. I want to comment on one thing you said. There was a podcast that was done by Sam Alderman and Joe Rogan. Sam founded ChatGPT, and Joe Rogan, obviously, people know who he is, podcaster.
Yep.
And it was a AI version of both of them talking to each other about AI.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Oh, it was phenomenal. And you wouldn't even know it wasn't them. It was the AI version of both of them. It was on Joe's podcast. And they were the whole conversation is, how would somebody be good on AI? Like and the tendency, Sam had said that it's somebody that's very creative is always going to do best on AI because it's going to know how to prompt. A very creative person will know how to prompt better than like even an engineer, right? Because you're narrowing questions down, you're hitting it with different variations of questions, so you kind of like green light a lot, and that's how AI behaves the best. But the people that are using AI like in a negotiation against each other, it's are you putting things in that you can't deliver on, right? But I think the real what's going to happen is you're going to have to really get really good at like the process. You're going to have a good process by which you negotiate with, or go back to what I said. Like there are certain things in a sales process or a negotiation that have to be dealt with live. And the tendency with AI, since it's a machine learning and that it shows in text more often than not, that's how we see most people, at least in our industry, is using it to build proposals and things like that, or how to respond. You're still going to have to respond in certain cases live with humans. So, and I don't see that going away. And in some cases, I think you get more efficient, but you're still going to have people wanting to do business face to face and more complex selling and things like that. Now, I agree with you on the menial tasks like answering the phone, taking orders, or stuff like that. I think that will go to AI. Much like if you're selling an airplane ticket, you don't really talk to anybody about an airplane ticket anymore, right? So that's where some of that's going.
Do you see businesses that are trying to eliminate actual sales humans and replace them with AI?
I see companies looking for ways to reduce anything that's labor intensive. Like even in our own company, and I'll answer the sales human thing in a second. Also, even in our own company, we're looking to how do we use AI to build proposals that take a lot of labor? How do we use AI to not have 3 different people on a call, right? When we might need 2 to kind of summarize some things, right? In some of our customers in sports and entertainment, we're seeing some of the smaller sales that are made by people. How do they get AI to do that? Now, That's not new because I think you see that in a lot of cases. You see it in selling airplane tickets. You see that in selling theater tickets and things like that. I think it's the more expensive stuff that you're going to want to talk to somebody a little bit because it becomes a little bit more believable, right? But there's definitely a shift. You definitely see that shift.
If somebody's listening to this who hasn't really taken the leap yet, they know. I talk to business owners. I know they're out there who know this is where the world is going, but they just haven't been able to get started. If somebody wants to try to start bringing AI into their sales process, do you have any suggestions on how to get started? Maybe 1, 2, 3 steps to get going?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say that to anybody who is listening that's kind of hesitating, don't be the last of the buggy whip people, right? There was a group of people out there that said that car thing's really not going to take root. I'm going to keep selling saddles and buggy whips, right? So I would say number one, like, don't be that person. This is here. It's here to stay. You're going to kind of embrace it at some level. I would say number one, I would start looking at, if you're not using it in your business, I'd start getting some paid versions of some things. And you mentioned it earlier. You had an associate of yours or somebody that you know that uses AI to help them make decisions. I do that all the time. I use AI to help me plan. It's like having a couple PhDs there. And then it helps me summarize things when my eyes get tired to read, right? You can compare and contrast things. I would buy AI. If you haven't, I would get some AI on my phone. You can chat GPT on your phone, a paid version, and ask AI how you should use AI in your business. So I would start testing that out immediately. I think that, and as silly as that seems, I think you'd be kind of blown away.
How about specifically for sales?
Yeah, for sales, I think where I'd be using AI, if you're right now, I'd start with like email campaigning and things like that. You can see we've been using AI a couple of years to help us build some good social media messaging, right? I think that's warranted, and you don't have to. At first, maybe you take some baby steps with it on some posts, and then you have it build it out. I know we've reduced our marketing headcount because we use AI so much. But we still have the creatives to build certain things, and I know they use AI to do some work also. So I think they're things I would really be looking at, Lauren. I think are important, right? I think AI can affect your business in two ways, right? You can be efficient, not effective, and you can be effective and not efficient. I think AI at some level helps with both.
You mentioned social media. Maybe this is showing my bias as a lifelong journalist. But that's one area. I mean, I really get it for things like proposals and anything where you're bringing together thinking and analyzing. But when I use it to create language that I'm going to share with other people, I'm usually disappointed. I feel like it just smooths out the rough edges. It's professional, but it's not interesting. How do you think it works with social media? Has it been effective for you?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. And like, I'm with you. I'm a purist, so I'm not. I've written 3 books. That's my IP. They're my stories and things like that. I gave a talk not long ago, and actually in your neck of the woods in Atlantic City, at a casino for a pretty large healthcare organization like senior living and things like that. And somebody wrote me a question on social, right? And I was kind of on a plane on the tarmac, and I put the question in AI, and I said, answer this like I normally would answer, make it short, make it sincere. Now, remember, my AI has taken a lot of my input and knows how I kind of write. So I had it, and I was just toast at the end of the day. But I know I'm smart enough to know social media. You got to kind of answer in a timely fashion. You lose your audience a little bit. And I had it framed it out, and I added some things to it, and I took some things out. I massaged a couple things. It just helped me. I had a little writer's block. I was tired. I'm double nickels this year, so I'm 55. So not as fast as I am sometimes. So I would say, is that cheating? No, because I actually took the time, as far as I'm concerned, to put it in there and help me think a little bit and massage it. So I think it helps with stuff like that.
That's how I use it too.
They were my words. They were my words, but I have no problem saying it. I'm not automatically responding to people. I'm thinking about what they said. I'm looking at it. I'm spending time with it. Right.
That makes sense to me. I hate doing a first draft, and I find that AI can be tremendously helpful with that first draft, but then I want the final version to feel like it came from me.
To be you, to really be you. I've messed with it a couple of times where I kept prompting it to write it more like me. And then I looked at how many times I prompted and I said, damn, I should have just wrote it. You know what I mean? So I've been down that road a couple times, but I think it saves some time. Like I use it a lot I read some things. I'm like, I don't know if I quite understand that. And I take a picture of it and I said, what does this really mean? And what I really use it for as a personal coach is I learn the best with a metaphor, an analogy, a simile. And when I put something complex and I'll say, well, give me an analogy of that. Because that's how I teach too. And I find it wonderful for that. I live in the world. I love analogies. I love a short story. I love a point like that. So I do a lot of that just to help me. It helps me retain things.
That makes sense. Lance Tyson is CEO of the Tyson Group, based in Columbus. Lance, let's not let another year and a half go past.
No way. I'm so fortunate to have a relationship with you over the years, and I appreciate you. And thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lance. Have a great week, everybody.